to me personally. And I was young enough then to be able to focus on my martial arts career still. There was no one doing it as a career, no one was paid or anything back then, so I was going to have to teach. So I would have loved to have been able to just fight for money, but there wasn't that opportunity really. That'd have been great. Yeah. And there is now. You got with what they've got with the MMA circuit.
Well, look at Conor Van, steps straight out of boxing, doesn't he?
Yeah.
If he's out yet, he's still got his boxing professional.
I think so. While he's still in. Yeah.
Incredible.
So with that, then I just wanted to do that, and things were happening in the early 2000s as well. All the American gurus were coming over, and these guys are millionaires teaching martial arts. So they were coming over and telling them about all their processes and systems and how you can actually make a living from it. So there
was all these seminars in them days, weren't there?
Yeah.
You had all these seminars, and they were making good coin off it.
They were. So you didn't realise at the time that you're their income stream, aren't you? So, but you were still learning, and we're still getting value and getting stuff from it. But I wanted, not all of it rubbed with me, because a lot of it was quite PC, like, and coming from the military, especially as para-reg, I'm old school with my approach to things, but I had to change it somewhat because I'm teaching children. But I wanted to keep the authenticity, and I wanted to keep the same kind of ethos. So I started my organisation called British Military Martial Arts, and obviously I run classes like you would a military PT session, and would have big milestone events like the black belt is nails. It's like doing multiple P company events, and I've got kids that are 12, 13 going through it as well. So you can imagine the type of preparation mentally we need to get them in. And the managing of the parents' expectations as well, that's a lot, because it's not nice seeing your children go through that.
Parents almost sort of like live some of these things. I've seen in the football world with they live the kids live it for them, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially the mums, they can't help it. That's what they're there for, to keep them alive, because the dads are pushing them.
Especially with something like martial arts, because playing football, you might get tackled roughly or whatever, but you're kicking and punching people in the head, aren't you?
Yeah, this is it.
It's like little Johnny's there and his mum's going,
yeah, and they're crying as well, and they're going to be crying. Sometimes they get a bit of blood's going around. You just can't help it. You manage it as best as you can, but you've got to make sure that you want to set these kids up so that that it changes them. It should be a big milestone event, which once they've done, changes their whole self-image about themselves, and sets them up so they can be a rock solid adult, and they learn from it. So it can't be easy. It's got to be tough.
I think that's one of the key things I think that kids do get from martial arts, and anything exterior from school, is you're teaching them stuff they don't do in school, do they?
No, nothing.
There's none of that sort of
No. So we make sure we do that. We do log run and everything. We do a log run on my instructor training course. We do a log run. The sparring, you obviously know milling in the parachute regiment. It's like 16 rounds worth, but obviously with more skill. But we're breaking them down. We make them do a run first and fitness tests, and then they spar. Then they'll go to the full contact, and then they'll do 2-on-1 full contact. So you totally depleted them, and then you just putting bigger and bigger challenges in front of them. But once they've overcome it, it changes them forever. Parents are my biggest fans at that point. Then they're like, "Oh, thank you." Totally changes the way they
Johnny's disciplined, he's got confidence.
He gets to wear the black suit as well. So where you earn your maroon beret or whatever. So with this, you earn your black suit and your black belt. So they it's like a superhero outfit, we say. The closest thing you're going to get to it. So they get to earn it and stand next to the instructors, and they hold them in high high regards, don't they? Just like you do with the depot staff. It's the same process when, they're up here, they're achieving, they're doing well. You look up to them. Once you've done the tests that they've done that qualified them to get through, you elevate your own self-image to where you believe that they were, don't you? Until you get filled in downtown a bit and realise you're not as bulletproof as you thought.
But so, the military, how large is this organisation?
So we've got the biggest chain of martial arts centres in the UK. Wow. So we had 100 locations just before COVID. That wiped about 70% of the business out at that point.
Everyone suffered. At the cadets, you had a thing called Keep the Flame Alive. They're just doing anything to keep people interested in what they were doing before, because it's very difficult, isn't it? Did you do any sort of like Zoom?
We had to. We did as much as we could to try and keep people engaged. But how many lockdowns? We had 3 or 4, didn't we? So the more lockdowns we did,
I started off in Spain. I ended up.
Did you?
Years, you know what I mean? Everywhere I went got locked down. It's followed me about at one stage.
So I think it starts off, everyone's engaged, but the longer it went on for, less and less people got engaged. So we just tried to work as hard as we could. But the good thing is after lockdowns, what I did is I changed my business model somewhat, because I was opening like 10 locations. Say, for example, you got a city like Manchester, you got 10, we opened 10 different locations in primary schools. So, and that one instructor would cover those. And what we were doing, because of COVID, they just weren't letting us back into these schools because of all the safeguarding for the children. But the martial arts centres I had, we were allowed to open, we could run classes, and they were just filling up. So what I did is, I got the instructors and we did like a sideward step rather than a step backwards or forwards, and we moved a lot of them into full-time locations because there was loads available on the high street. We were able to get some good deals because loads of businesses were going.
Lots of things went under, didn't they?
Yeah, so I moved them into full-time ones. Then they'd locked down again, and then when we reopened, boom, they just filled them up within weeks. So I was very lucky that I managed to regain everything pretty quickly, and had a kind of a different model set then because it was the full-time centres, and that seems to be working well now.
And that's what you're rolling with now.
Well, I've got both. Yeah, so we employ some people, some are franchisees. It depends, whatever they want. Once people have done I do like a 5-day training selection course. So I'm actually opening that up next year to other people outside my organisation because I've done it for 3 times a year for 15 years. So I love it. It's great every time. I've got them 5 days, put them through the paces. A lot of it's similar to you do a PTI course, but it's all martial arts orientated, and they'll go to some of the local centres around us, and then on the Friday they do all the physical tests and they get beasted to see they've got the right mindset and minerals to be a BMMA instructor, and if they get an A grade, they're allowed to work with us.
The actual martial arts that you're using in kickboxing, how long does it take to master that? How long does it take to learn that?
Well, to become a black belt, it's about 4 or 5 years. But a master that, the mastering's but I always say, I've trained a lot of world champions, you see, because I competed to a high level. I was multiple British, European and world champion. Wow. So when I got out, I was submerged in martial arts. I was training 2-3 times a day, running all my classes. So I'd train once or twice a day, then I'd run 6 classes, and I'd train in the last kind of 2 with my squad. And I went in and just said, I'm going to train these if you want me to, like I do, but it's my rules, my terms, my conditions. Are you in? If they don't do it, they're gone. So there's no argument.
Yeah, there's no if, buts or maybes.
And I didn't need to do this. That was paying. The other bit was paying the money. It was getting my income with the actual schools, and because the beginners take up most of it. So that was all set up. But this was for fun. This is what I wanted to do, to create a bit of a legacy and also to hold me accountable, because these guys were travelling everywhere with me, all around the UK. We'd fight most weekends, and every month would be in a different country. I'd take them all with us, and I built up a really good high-level squad as well. So that was good fun, but obviously that was hard work. I was doing like 6 classes a day. I was running my full-time location as well as all these other ones. That's about much of a capacity as I could manage. Couldn't really get bigger than that, so I had to change my model somewhat, step back a little bit, get other people in to run beginners classes. Then I started pushing other instructors out to open more and more locations, and started systemizing things in a way that I could pass it on.
So do you have many ex-military workers?
Yeah, loads. That's what originally British military martial arts. So it's military ethos and values, but we have also a lot of about half of them ex-military.
Really?
So they get to be part of a brotherhood or sisterhood again.
Hear that, happy business owner? They're whistling because they found a great deal for unlimited calls, texts and data with 3 Business. Plans start from just £8 a month with a 4.5% price increase each April. Switch to 3 Business for savings that'll give you something to whistle about. Voted the UK's best network for business.
As voted by the Mobile Industry Awards 2024, £8 per SIM for 10 to 20 SIMs. 24-month plan. Unlimited UK only. X 20% VAT.
First, the bad news. SAP Business AI won't help you generate cubist versions of your family's holiday photos, but it will help you understand which supplier is best to help you roll out your plant-based packaging in Southeast Asia, identify the training your junior project manager needs to rise up the ranks, and automate repetitive tasks while you focus on big innovations so you can be ready for the next opportunity. Revolutionary technology, real-world results. That's SAP Business AI.
Yeah, no, it's good, and it puts you with like-minded people again, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
I found, boxing really helped me, and it put me in a place where people wanted to achieve. You always had people there who were training. The whole thing. I think it really, if it's my one message to veterans, get yourself involved in some sort of a form of sport.
Absolutely.
Or something, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
100%. Because that's what it re-engages you again. It makes them remember themselves. We've had a lot of veterans that have served, they've come out, they forget who they are a little bit, because when you're in there, you're someone special. You've got meaning, value, you've got purpose, haven't you? And
especially like units in Paris, and Paris are told all the time, you're the best, you're the best, you're the best, you're the best. You know what I mean? And All of a sudden you get on Civvy Street, you're like,
Yeah, they're on a building site, you know, or they've just got a regular job.
And no one actually gives a shit that you were
No.
paying rent, do they? Do you know what I mean? No one gives a shit. I was in the regiment.
No.
You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like, oh wow, where did that come from then?
I know exactly. So we want to give them some purpose again, and also utilise their skill sets. Military people have such a great set of skills that for mentoring others, that's what you're taught to lead on.
They don't even realise that.
No, they don't.
As well, which is really a real shame because
Really is, yeah.
it's only sort of like lately that they've started sort of like transferring your skills into Civvy Street,
Yeah,
give you
yeah.
a piece of paper to say, good manager.
Yeah.
He's a section commander, he's the best manager in the world. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Someone who's done juniors or is a section commander
Yeah.
for leadership is second to none. I thoroughly believe that because you learn to perform when all the odds are against you. You can only tell real good leadership when everything's going wrong. I think
Yes.
it's easy when
100%
everything's
right.
everything's going right, but when everything's going wrong and that you're under pressure and stress and you still manage to get, you know, no plans, vibes, contact, does it? It's improvise, adapt,
100%.
overcome, change things, still achieve your objective. You know, once you've got that type of mindset, you can succeed in anything.
Yeah, no, I genuinely believe that. So, what are your plans now? What are your plans? Are you going to continue with the martial arts thing? What are you hoping to do now?
So I've actually got a book that's out in 2 months' time. So it's called Elite Martial Arts Instructor.
Okay, cool.
So it's
Is that going Amazon Prime?
It is, yeah.
We'll plug the book.
yeah. So I haven't told anyone about it yet. I'm going to release it properly.
Okay.
About start of September. I'm going to start letting people. So I've leaked it out now, and they listed. That's fine. But we're going to do a bit of a promotion for it. It goes on Amazon. It's out the 1st of November, and it's called Elite Martial Arts Instructor. And it's the systems, processes to open and operate a successful martial arts school. But it's also got loads of coaching tips, fighting tips. Anything to be elite and top level within anything martial arts, basically.
Okay.
So it's a great way for people to find a little bit about what I've done, who I am, and also at the same time, if you're running a martial arts school already or you're interested in it, I've literally mapped out exactly what you need to do to grow, not just to survive, but to thrive, to grow, and to scale. Because everything I do is got to be the best. It's got to be the biggest. You've got to make it as good as you possibly can.
Yeah.
And that's the same mindset that I had in the parachute regiment. That's helped me achieve and have success as a fighter, as a coach.
You
And
alluded to it even as a kid. You wanted to become this man.
it's all the same mindset though, isn't it, Phil? You know, it's that constant and never-ending improvement. You're never happy either, are you? I'm able to stand back and be mildly happy sometimes. Think, yeah, do you know what? I'm doing all right there. But back to
But
the
if you
grind.
rest on your laurels, that's when you come off
Exactly.
the boil. Do you know what I mean? And I have been guilty of that before myself. Do you know what I mean? You suddenly get yourself in a place where, oh, I've won the ball. No, you haven't.
Yeah.
You're
Never
on the way
over.
up there, son. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
You got to keep plugging on.
So yeah, so the book is a way of getting that message out there a little bit, and I'm now going to open my course up to non-members of my school, so people that might be doing martial arts already but don't necessarily want to become part of my organisation.
Okay.
Just a way of helping others. I want to help the industry. I've seen how valuable it is, and I'm the living, breathing example of what martial arts can do to help somebody. You know, I wasn't the perfect child by any means, but I've managed to build a level of success.
I think it gives people a lot of core values
Yeah.
and standards that they possibly wouldn't have had otherwise.
Exactly. Very similar to the military.
And you know, the military now, I know that the military at present are looking at various different combat, sort of like hand-to-hand combat roles, because disciplines, because it's so valuable. It's such a valuable skill to have. You know, be able to fight.
Yeah,
You know what I
absolutely.
mean? Be able to actually stand there, mano, or womano,
Yeah.
and have a tear-up.
Absolutely. I know some of the militaries do, don't they? Some of them pay a bit more attention to it.
I mean, P Company Mill, don't they?
Yeah, that's
But
it.
Other than that, I mean, who actually gets a tear-up during a train?
No,
I don't think anybody has a tear-up during a tear-up, do they?
They should do.
I don't think in the Marines, but you're right. You should do. Can you keep your head up during a
Exactly.
you know, and can you keep going forwards? And you know, aren't you going to keep staring down the barrel of being punched? Do you know what I mean?
There is a lot of similarities, I'd imagine. Do you know what I mean? It is, if you're going to turn your back and, you know, from a punch, then
You get this
there's
fight
no
or
way
flight
someone's...
thing. And
Yeah.
some people would argue you can't do anything about the fight or flight thing. I argue that you can, but
Yeah.
you know, it's that initial reaction that needs training and needs, because if the first time you ever come across something that's going to actually
Oh, yeah,
physically hurt you,
absolutely.
of course you're going to go to your natural reaction, aren't you? You can train that out of people, I believe. But
Yeah, just familiarity with that
Yeah.
experience. You just need constant facing of that feeling, and eventually you can settle it down a bit and start to think, all right, okay.
and then eventually you'll grow enough confidence, just like
Yeah.
any sort of combat sport, you'll grow the confidence to actually stand there, start analysing and
Yeah,
throwing
yeah.
back and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, 100%. So you've been doing a bit of boxing yourself still, haven't you?
I love boxing, mate.
Still?
I started boxing at 45 years old.
Really?
I had my first fight at 45 years old.
There's no way I'd want to do anything like that anymore. I'm done on all that. I was watching you do it and I thought, fair play.
2 weeks ago.
Did you? Oh, yeah, that's right.
I'm trying to line another one up now.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
see.
quite a big one,
Yeah, but it is good though, isn't it? It just, like you said, you've lost a hell of a lot of weight.
It's kept me on the straight and narrow.
Yeah.
It's helped my overall fitness, which has also opened up other things. I'm walking up the mountains and that now,
Yeah.
and that sort of stuff. So it's absolutely turned me around. So, again, I'm trying to, people like yourself, pushing this message to veterans. It's massively helped me up here.
Yeah.
Massively helped
You
me
need to occupy your mind. You've got to have a challenge. You've got to have something to aim for, and a bit of a struggle, I think. When you sat there and because I remember when I stopped fighting at 35, like I was just training just to maintain. I was in pretty good shape, so just training to maintain shape was not doing it at all. It was like that's no why to get in the gym.
Yeah, it's not a reason, is it?
No.
There needs to be an end result.
Exactly. So I was sabotaging so I'd end up just going on holiday, drinking and eating loads, putting a bit of weight on, so I could get that kind of dopamine hit again of right, let's get myself in shape and have like a bit of a challenge. But then
physical aptitude tests are really important because just some people are perfectly capable, but they're just not physically able to do certain things, and we all have to recognise our limitations, and that's an important part of learning who you are. And years later, I became an instructor, and one of the biggest elements of me teaching them was to teach them their own limits. You have to know your own limitations because, as you all know, if you don't know your own limitations, you're not only putting yourself in danger, but you're putting your oppo in danger.
It's a dangerous thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you joined the fire brigade.
Mm-hmm.
Just tell me a little bit about what it was like in those days. As being a fireman, your calls, where did you go? What did you do? Do you know?
So I've been in now over 23 years. So I'm an old sweat now. And I joined in the days, you could argue, when the culture wasn't so good. I know the fire service has come under fire a lot recently, and there's been a lot more transparency in sort of culture reviews and things like that, and that's, they're welcomed, because unless you have a transparent look at yourself and an honest look at yourself, you don't know where things might be going wrong. You might be blind to it. So that's a good thing, and we've recognised that, it's typical that sort of the age, the era, if you like, when I joined, and you'll recognise a lot of this. It was very macho. It was male dominated. And showing any kind of feelings was arguably a sign of weakness. We didn't talk about mental health or anything like that.
Yeah.
It just wasn't done. So back then, there were no real support networks. We had no chats as recruits about sort of the things you're going to see and your experiences you're going to have. So it's a rude awakening when it starts to happen.
Right, so you've been on. So what would you say would be the average call out? Because it's not a fire every time you get called out.
No.
It's like a long stretch in imagination.
No, so you've got your routine calls, which are just automatic fire alarms, and you have to go and check it out. But then obviously you've got fires of all different natures, chemical incidents. A lot of your bread and butter is car crashes, rail crashes, plane crashes, rescues from height, rescues from underground. We're all singing, all dancing, jack of all trades kind of thing.
Do you know what the funny thing was? And I do remember someone once telling me that if you've got a problem in your house, don't call the police, call the fire brigade, because 8 men will turn up with an axe.
And therein lies the problem sometimes, because we do get called out to a lot of stuff that isn't really what we should be getting used for. And the problem with that is, people have that mentality that the fire service are going to help, and we want to help because we're inherently wired like that, but it does take resources away from what could be a real incident, in another location.
Can I throw you straight into sort of like a fire, as it were, myself now, and ask you, what was the worst call out you've ever had? What was the worst thing you ever had to attend to?
Well, that's a very, very easy one for me, very close to home. December the 12th, 2021. And that was, I went to my mother's own death. She had a cardiac event. I went to that. So yeah, straight up, I'll always say that was obviously my worst.
Yeah, no, that must have been absolutely. Did you know you were going to your mother's house to deal with something like that? Did you find that in the truck on the way or something?
I had an inkling. I was on a duty weekend as an officer, and I was warned by a duty group commander that the ID found on the lady in question could suggest that it was my mum. And basically it was a bit of a heads up not to attend, but I'm going to attend. And to be honest, I always attended. If control ever let me know about sort of a red call, we call them assist other agencies. It's a big part of what we do, and we get called by other agencies to assist. And normally with the ambulance, that is an event of that, some sort of a medical event, because obviously our guys and girls are really highly trained and trauma care specialists and things like that, and sort of just one level down from a paramedic really, so really highly skilled. So we get called to assist a lot and things like that, and but we're only meant to really go on what we consider sort of the red calls, which are normally 9 times out of 10, unfortunately, they sort of do tend to end in a fatality. So
when you really are getting called out on the worst day of people's lives when you turn up at these things, aren't you? So that's
you are, and that day ended up being sort of the worst day of my life. But I always elected to go, because often you're just informed as an officer that one of these calls is occurring, but I always elect to go to support the crew for their welfare, because I know 9 times out of 10 how this is going to end. And so that was no different in that sense that day, and I chose to. I would have attended regardless. When I was informed that it could be my mum, obviously that added another layer of emotion to it, but I switched off because I didn't know, so I attended as I would any other, and you resort, and this is where again you'll know this, you just drop back into the safety of your training, and you just go into a mode and you just operate.
Yeah, of course you do, and that's why there is that level of intense training, so that you can,
exactly, yeah,
it
and
does keep you on the rails, as it were, during.
Yeah, because you can't, if one of your oppos goes down next to you, you've still got a job to do. You'll try and see to them in a second, but if you're in a firefight, you've got to crack on with the job at hand. And it's a similar thing, you drop back into a mode, and you just function the way you've always been trained to function, and it's an instinct. So yeah, but then obviously when the dust settles and the adrenaline starts seeping out hours later, and then it sort of hits home.
That's what I call the Glad to Be Alive club, and that's when you sort of realise how close things were and
decompression
all that sort of stuff, and you go, wow, that was insane. You know.
And sometimes, I'll get back from a call, and I'll sit there and I'll try and decompress. So, because often the difficulty for me now is, as an officer, I miss the element. When I used to go out in a big red truck, we'd come back to the station and there'd be the black humour, and there's ways of dealing with stuff. You'd make light of it, and with your support network and your watch. But as an officer, a lot of the time I'll have seen what the crew have seen, but then I'll go home on my own, and I don't want to take that baggage.
Just for the people that listen to this, right? And I want this to come across, and I'm not doing this because I want to be hunting grisly stuff.
Yeah.
The sort of stuff that you're seeing, I want people to understand what it is that you see, because it's part of your life, isn't it? And to understand what you go through, and especially to push out the mental health, I think people have to understand where things have gone wrong. So what's when you talk grisly, I mean, you're obviously talking some pretty horrific scenes. Yeah,
and like you said a minute ago, we see people in their worst hour. I had a fatal incident 2 nights ago, where I was physically doing CPR, because it was one of those jobs where it was all hands on deck, because it was a really dynamic situation. I couldn't stand back and sort of instruct people. I had to jump in there, and we were doing what's called pit crew CPR, and you do what you have to do, and unfortunately that was a fatality. And I had 2 young lads on the crew that night, and that was their first. They're quite new, and that was their first fatality. So I take that opportunity now, and I'm sure we'll talk a bit more about the mental health side, but I took that opportunity to go back to the station with them for that decompression. I had a cup of coffee with them, and we had a chat about what we had just done and seen, because it's good to have that that calm moment after.
How much training do firefighters receive in regards to sort of like, you are going to see major organs on the floor, you're going to see bits severed, you're going to see some really horrible, disgusting stuff. Is it talked about beforehand? Do you sort of like say, look, you're likely to see this, and is that part of the preparation?
Yeah. When I joined, no, is the easy answer. Very little. We were basically told, if you get any issues, the occupational health unit is up the end of the corridor.
And that's always said tongue-in-cheek in those days as well, wasn't it? Like, if you want to go, off you go, like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so if you have any issues, you go and see them.
Yeah.
And that was it. That was your support. And but now we're a lot more proactive. The tide is turning. In the forces and the emergency services, we've become, mental health and well-being has become much more prevalent now. We're being a lot more proactive about it and pushing it out there. And the tide is turning. We're still not there. So mental health is still, I still think, is a way off being seen on a par with a physical injury. But
I see it.
We're getting there.
Stuff as well.
Yeah, exactly. But we're on the right
Do you think
path.
more can be done to prepare people for those situations?
I do, and we're trying to counter that now with, we will go firefighters, or you'll know, sort of trim advisors and stuff like that for the mental health stuff. We'll go in to a recruit squad and have that sort of chat and talk about the mental health aspect of it and what they're likely to see and experience. Because nothing can prepare you for that in the forces and the services. You come from you've either been a school kid or you've come from another job, what I call real world, and then and that's what I reminded the troops the other night. We came back from this job and I said, in 10 minutes time we're going to finish our coffees and we're going to go, and we've got to return to real life.
To your family,
you're
exactly.
Exactly.
Going to be putting kids to bed, you're going to be kissing the missus on the cheek and having your dinner.
Yeah, and that's why I try and have that moment of decompression now certainly before I go home, because as an officer I can get called out from my home address and I've got to go home, and actually I was thankful the other night, it was in the middle of the night, so I knew my wife would be asleep and stuff, and because she means well, and she says, oh, what did you go to, how was it? And I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to. She didn't sign up to that life, and
you don't need to burden her, but at the same time you need to let her know that you're dealing with it.
Yeah, so she knows, obviously I have baggage and I have some mental health issues that I'm dealing with and have been dealing with for a number of years, and so she is supportive. She's very aware of some of the things I struggle with, but that has all manifested itself because years ago I never processed anything, and you have as a psychologist says, you've got a proverbial shoebox in your head, and every incident or traumatic memory, a snapshot of it goes into that shoebox, and for many years you might be all right, you keep the lid on, but after it was 20 years in my case, the lid pops off because there's too many.
I call it pigeonholing. I'll say you've got pigeonholes in there, and all of a sudden you'll just go, oh, what's in that one? Do you know what I mean? You're like, wow.
Exactly, yeah. And they all spill out, and then you suddenly realise I'm pretty messed up here. I've never dealt with any of this, and now I've got to try and unravel it and do something about it. But, and the catalyst was, for me, the motivation to get help was my family. When I was on my own, I could kind of be, we can be, as blokes, we can be selfish and bury our head in the sand, and I probably would have carried on just burying my head in the sand.
I think a lot of people as well treat it with drink and stuff like that, don't they?
Well, I went down that avenue. Yeah, went down that avenue for a bit of escapism, anything to get away from the thoughts in my head, and anything to avoid going to sleep. And it becomes a slippery slope, and you spiral. And I dipped in and out of treatment over the years, and I've been a typical bloke. I went to see the shrink once. I thought he'd give me something to sort me out, and I'd come back and no one would be none the wiser. But I now know it doesn't work like that, because a lot of these things are deeply entrenched and they take some unraveling. And so it wasn't sort of till 2017 that I committed to a full. I promised my wife I'd commit to a full program with a psychologist, and that's sort of really where my treatment started, and I've been in full-time treatment since sort of 2017.
Has it made things better at home?
It has. I'm a realist, so I say I'm a work in progress, and I possibly always will be. There may never be a time where I'm what you can say I'm better, I'm healed. That time may never come. I'm realistic about that, and I'm not naive, but I'm in a better place than where I once was, and I'm trying to be proactive about it. And I think the better side for me now is that I know more about my condition, and I'm more aware of it. I'm more aware of what my triggers are. I've got some coping mechanisms that I've learned over the years now to try and go down another path when I see the red flags.
Yeah.
So there's ways and means of doing things now where I can try and avoid that, and I know what makes me tick, and I can see things coming. When I had a breakdown many years ago, and it's primarily because I didn't see anything coming. I'd always ignored all this stuff, and
lip service type.
Yeah, and then it hit me, and it took me out. It's hit me from the side. I didn't see it coming. I was unprepared for it. I'd ignored it for a long time, and then I was in real trouble, and that's when I really spiraled.
So sport's a big thing for you now as well, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I call it my therapy, essentially. So many years ago, I was on a host of antidepressants. I was on so many different concoctions of drugs, it was unreal, and I didn't know if they were good for me, bad for me, just sort of
side effects going to happen, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and I remember at one time being on like a derivative of like Prozac, which really got some bad press years later because they discovered that it gave you suicidal tendencies, and I remember around that time I was struggling with some of that, and so I was really determined. I hated that I was on antidepressants. I hated the fact that I was relying on some sort of chemical to make me a normal, neurotypical person. So it was a real stigma in my head being on antidepressants, because it labelled me as someone that was mentally ill, and I was desperate to get off them. So over time I found that my escapism, actually, the one thing that I did maintain even through the periods where I was quite ill, was I kept going to the gym. It was in my DNA. I'd always worked out. It was my sort of time away, and I realised actually when I was in the gym and I was working out, or I was running, or I was doing whatever form of exercise it was, I was only focused on that, and my mind wasn't really drifting off to the other stuff, which gave me trouble. So I soon realised that actually, do you know what, there's something in this. My escapism needs to be more of this. I need to do more of this. So I became really sort of obsessive.
It's like a safe space for you.
It was.
Hey Sainsbury's, how can I finish Christmas dinner with a big bang?
I'd suggest our Taste the Difference Cheesemonger selection, made up of 5 artisan cheeses. Or there's always the extravagant Christmas Carol Mel and Brownie Cheesecake. Sound good, BFG?
Music to my ginormous ears. Looking for a dreamy dessert to follow Christmas dinner? Ask Sainsbury's. Sainsbury's, good food for all of us.
Subject to availability in selected stores and online. Excludes locals. Cheesecake from 20th of December while stocks last.
Hear that, happy business owner? They're whistling because they found a great deal for unlimited calls, texts and data with 3 Business. Plans start from just £8 a month with a 4.5% price increase each April. Switch to 3 Business for savings that'll give you something to whistle about. Voted the UK's best network for business.
As voted by the Mobile Industry Awards 2024, £8 per SIM for 10 to 20 SIMs, 24-month plan, unlimited UK only, X 20%
yeah.
To go in there, I can pump iron, or I can get on a treadmill, or
exactly.
I can bounce up and down, whatever I'm going to do. It's all good.
And I don't think it's a coincidence that what I do now and what I'm probably known for now is sort of the endurance events that I do. And people think I'm pretty crazy, but actually the more that something looks impossible, the more it appeals to me. The more people.
No, I mean, Marathon des Sables is one I know you've done.
I've done that a couple of times. Yeah,
a couple of times.
Yeah. I've run.
And there's not many people go back again, is there?
Well, I had to, because I got ill on the first one, and this will all come out in a documentary because they filmed it all. I was half unconscious. I don't remember, but I was found in between 2 checkpoints on day 4.
If the camel train catches you up, it's all over then, isn't it?
It is, yeah. The saying is mind the camels. And I didn't know what that was until I went out there. But yeah, the camels, if the camels catch you, you're at the back and they'll take you out of the race.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was unconscious. I don't remember a lot about it the first time I went out there. That was on day 4, so I was medically withdrawn on that one. But so I had to go back, and But the problem is, in between that one and the next time I went out there, I only had 4 months, and I thought that's fine because it had been postponed so many times because of COVID. This was all during the COVID time, and it kept, it's on, it's off, it's on, it's off, and so I was training for that for like 2 years, and my body was starting to fall apart because of the volume. But I was filming the documentary, and the film crew were following me, and they were out in the desert, and then it didn't go the way I'd planned to. And for me, it was almost like I saw that event as, the flag post at the end of my journey. That was the pinnacle of my mental health journey, and that was going to solve. I was going to do the Marathon des Sables, and that was going to solve everything.
Everything done, yeah.
But it doesn't. It doesn't. It makes you realise actually it's just another event, and I've done many like that. And actually, when I came back from that, I spiraled again because I was so depressed. I hadn't achieved what I wanted to achieve. Then my mum died as well that Christmas, and then in the April I went back out to the desert with that fresh in my memory and having to focus on doing it again. But that's where my mindset and resilience comes in, and I went out there and I achieved what I set out to do initially. But it did make me realise at the end of that, 4 years of my life pretty much I dedicated to that one event, and at the end of it, when I succeeded, I just thought, actually, it makes you realise what's important. You already knew it's your family and your loved ones.
Yeah, of course it is, yeah.
Yeah, so it's funny because I remember looking at the trailer for the documentary, and one of the things I say in the trailer is, I'd heard it so many times, a bit of a strapline, the person that goes out to the desert is very different to the person that comes back.
Yeah.
And I thought I was going to have some sort of epiphany moment out there, and it was going to solve all my mental health troubles, and I was going to suddenly see the light. But actually, no, it just makes you realise what is important, and
that is a way of seeing the light in a way.
It is.
You know
It is. Yeah, I'm glad.
I'm going to tell you, it's a 4-year way, a long way around it.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
It's there, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and you've probably experienced that yourself. Like
boxing doesn't mean. I love my boxing. Do you know what I mean? I love to have a fight to be focused on.
Yeah.
I train relentlessly for it. I eat, I diet, I do the whole thing.
Yeah.
When that fight's over, I go, oh.
Spiral.
Yeah. But like I say, the important thing is, everything is better.
Yeah.
Having done it, do you know what I mean?
It is totally, and I try and keep sight of that now because, I get exactly the same thing. I get the blues after one of my events because I love to have something on the horizon I'm training for, a goal, an ambition, and once I've done it, I'm like, right, what do I do now? And so I have got into the habit of, right, I've got to find something else now. I've got to find something else because that's how I tick. But the problem is with me doing these big events around the world that are quite famous for being like the toughest or branded the toughest foot race in the world, is how do you top that? So you've always got to try and look for something.
I was talking about someone earlier about it. I was having a conversation about some of the stuff you'd done. You found the Isle of Wight all the way around. That was quite a beast, wasn't it?
Yeah, that is a bastard. Sorry for the swearing.
That's all right, don't worry about that. But yeah, there is sort of. Where do you go once you've done that? Do you go to the North Pole and do one? Do you go underground?
Well,
do you
funny you should say that.
You know what I mean? What was your come on?
I do have some ambitions. I'm conscious I'm getting older, so I can't carry on doing this forever. Endurance challenges like this, the feats of endurance do take it out of your body, and I won't be able to do it forever. So I am conscious I want to crack on, but I do still have some ambition. I want to. One of the things I want to achieve is I want to finish all the Abbott World Marathon Majors. So there's certain marathons around the world that are considered the World Marathon Majors. You've got London, Tokyo, Berlin, Chicago, New York. So I've ticked off half of them. I still need to finish them off. I want to run an ultra marathon on every continent. There's still quite a few goals that I haven't achieved, and that would include North and South Pole. So
okay, there you go.
So yeah, it is doable. It's a lot of logistics, and it can be quite costly. So part of that is drumming up sponsorship and things like that, because I have self-funded most of my events, and something like the Marathon des Sables is horrifically expensive. Which means it's not possible for most normal people on a normal budget, because it is very difficult. Just to be on the start line for Marathon des Sables, you're looking at sort of $4,500, and then
there's a lot of dough, isn't it?
Exactly. And then once you've had all your medicals, your insurance, all the specialist gear, you know, you won't get much change out of 10 grand. And that's, when you look at that, that's just one race. It's quite hard to justify to your family. You know, and that's. But the problem is, it shouldn't be exclusively just for the people who've got loads of money. These events should be open to anyone.
I mean, what you're saying, so what you're actually getting out of doing these events is therapeutic in itself, isn't it?
It is for me. It's and like I say, I hinted towards it, alluded towards it earlier, that I don't think it's a coincidence. A lot of the people I've met on my events are ex-forces, are emergency services, and have a lot of mental baggage, and that's one of the reasons why they're there.
And not just so much mental baggage, but a lot of people that I speak to who've come from sort of like our backgrounds, which are very similar in a way. You need something in your life. I need something in my life. I have to have something I'm going for. Do you know what I mean? I have to be achieving something, or feel I'm achieving something, or helping out somewhere. Because if I'm not, I feel deflated. Like an empty windsock. I'm like, what have I got?
Cathartic release, because otherwise things build and build and build, and you know, typical blokes, we just end up exploding and doing something stupid or emotional, or going out drinking or something. I mean, I tend to avoid anything like that now. I don't really drink. I don't really.
I've been off the drink this year myself, and that was a huge thing, because I've always been I love the pub. I love being football. I love going out on a Saturday. Do you know what I mean? And actually, I thought I was going to really struggle, but I haven't.
No, I don't miss it at all. I don't drink socially. I don't drink at home. I don't need it. It's not something I need. But once upon a time, you know, back in my rugby days, I don't think I could have ever imagined life.
No, you can't picture life
on a Saturday night, and, you know, with the lads. And
I once worked out that you only had a couple of thousand Saturday nights in your life, if you were lucky.
Really?
Do you know what I mean? And I worked out how many you had. I thought, hang on, that's not enough for me.
Problem is I can't remember half of them. That's the problem. But so the one side, I've got my endurance events, and that's what I'm known for. But really, you know, I'm not an elite athlete anymore. I'm not of an age where I'm going to be winning these things. So for me now, I'm lucky to have a platform and some decent sponsors and backers behind me, and starting to get a bit of a media presence with the documentary and everything that's been going on. So I can use that platform to raise awareness of mental health,
which is great. Which is another journey almost, isn't it?
It is, and that's become a passion for me now.
So is that sort of like that? Your focus is now swinging away from sort of like
it is, and I'm thinking
where
about,
it was, and now you're thinking this is where my real forte is now.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a weird turnaround, because prior to 2017, I'd kept this a secret. It was a 20-year secret. I hadn't said this to anyone, you know, that was suffering with any kind of mental health issues. And when it all came out, I thought I don't want it to be in vain. Otherwise, what have I achieved? You know, I've let my guard down, so to speak, and people know that I've got some issues now. And you know, so what am I hoping to achieve by doing that? Firstly, try and get better, try and make life better for my family, because I was bringing my issues home, and I don't want to affect their life, and I want my kids to grow up with a normal dad, and one that doesn't have to shut himself in a dark room and not be with anyone, and constantly distant and distracted. And so I wanted to get better for them and for my own health and well-being. But the other thing I started to realise was I want to try and help other people, because I come from that era where there was no support, there was no acknowledgement or recognition of mental health.
No.
And we're now trying to do something about that, be proactive. So, you know, in the workplace, I'm trying to improve our resources and provision of mental health, what we're doing for people, how we're raising awareness. I do a lot of ambassador and charity work for mental health charities and organisations. And so I'm using my events really as a bit of a platform to raise awareness and raise funds sometimes for it. I've raised quite a lot of funds for the firefighters charity. Firefighters charity is really, really unique charity, and to our profession, we're really, really lucky. And I know a lot of services and forces have their own sort of version of that, you know, like benevolent funds and things like that, and combat stress and all this sort of thing. But firefighters charity have been amazing, and so I've raised money towards mental health recovery programs and things like that. And not long ago, they had me again down in Harkham House in Devon at one of their recuperation centres for a welfare week, and they're just they're angels in the dark sometimes. So but they're a charity, and like any charity, especially after COVID, really struggling. So I'd like to try and raise money.
It's really hard, isn't it? Because
Massive.
everybody's got their own charity. Everybody's competing for the same money out the same pockets, really, aren't we? Do you know what I mean? Which is incredible.
Yeah, and COVID really affected a lot of charities, and they're running in the red throughout that
well,
time.
two things. COVID affected the charities and their abilities to get around and do stuff, but it also affected a lot of people. A lot of people sat at home for that 2 years.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
With no help whatsoever.
No.
Staring at the wall, staring at the missus.
Yeah.
Things spiralling downwards the whole time, wasn't it?
And exactly. And they did say that if anything was going to come from COVID, it was going to be a mental health pandemic that we were going to see, because it really affected people, not just the obvious illnesses and death that came from COVID and that horrible time, but
After
it was the mental health aspect. People didn't realise they had mental health issues until they were stuck indoors at home. And then suddenly all of a sudden there was a heightened awareness of it, and actually, I kind of see that as a crest of a wave. And again, let's utilise that, let's leverage that to try and raise awareness. And so again, I try and just do that now, and that's kind of become my role. And I'm potentially 4 years away from retirement now, so I am starting to think of life after. What am I going to do? And I'd like to do something in the mental health space. I don't know yet, but hopefully, I've often said that if people can relate to my story, they can seek inspiration to seek help off the back of that, then it's been worth sort of opening up.
100%. I can see it in you. Do you know what I mean? And it is a make no bone about it. It's a brave thing to. You've thrown all your cards on the table and let people sort of like mull through them and what have you. Do you know what I mean?
I was massively worried about it, I'll be honest. Back in 2017, I was really panicking, because I'd come from that generation where we didn't talk about stuff. And then when I saw the response was so positive, I was really touched. I was really shocked, and I thought, blimey, I never expected that. And it was really nice. I expected some sort of a backlash, some sort of negative, people were like, oh, you're just attention seeking, this, that and the other, and I was really worried about it, but it was the complete opposite. It had a really good reaction, and actually clearly touched a nerve of a lot of people. And I get people phoning me now from in work circles and outside of work, saying, I just want to say, like, thanks for speaking up, and thanks for doing this, thanks for saying that, and thanks for doing that podcast or whatever, because I'm not quite as far down my journey as you, but it's made me realise that I need to get help and things.
I think that's the most important thing, is that people, at the end of all this, people realise that it's okay to actually stick your hand up and go, wow, I need help. Do you know what I mean? And the sooner they do it, the better it's going to be for them as well, isn't it?
It is, yeah, and it may be a long road. And like I say, I've been in full-time therapy since 2017, and I'm sitting here now saying, I'm not healed, I'm not better, and I am a work in progress, and I understand that could always be the case, but I'm miles ahead of where I once was, and I'm in a much better place, and I can try, and it doesn't mean that I'm not going to suffer from these thoughts that come into my head, but I can now see them coming a bit better,
compartmentalise them, put them where they need to be, counteract them,
try and do something about it. So I'm in a better place.
So very briefly, because we're going to run out of time eventually, right? Very briefly, your future now. What do you see as your future?
So I would like to finish my career. I'm at a point now where I do want to leave the fire service. I think it's made me quite unwell, but I'm professional enough I want to see out my time with distinction and credibility.
I don't think anyone's ever going to challenge that.
Well, I never go sick, and I know that, again, that's not a badge of honour. For me, I need to be kept distracted.
Your sense of duty is shining out throughout this interview, to be honest, mate.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Well, good, because I'm really conscientious about how I'm seen, and I want to be seen as a professional. I want to be seen as being good at my job, and when I go, I want people to say, at times maybe he was a bit rebellious, but he was really good at his job, and he had a passion for making other people better and seek help and things like that. And if I'm going to leave any kind of legacy in my job, it will be that. But I'm ready to go. It has made me quite ill, but I'm glad I did it. I'm glad. I'd like to think I've made a difference over the years in some people's lives, and you know, certainly in those worst moments. And try something different. I don't know, but I'm still young enough to do something and make an impact somewhere.
And take the third exit.
But we'll see where that is.
But from my point of view, I think you're a great ambassador for the word duty.
Thank you.
You really are. You know, you absolutely shine out there.
The new Apple Watch Series 10 is here. It has our biggest display ever. It's also the thinnest Apple Watch ever, making it even more comfortable on your wrist. And it's the fastest charging Apple Watch, getting you 8 hours of charge in just 15 minutes. Introducing the new Apple Watch Series 10. Now available for the first time in glossy jet black aluminium. Compared with previous equivalent models, requires iPhone XS or later. Charge time and actual results will vary.
Hey Sainsbury's, how can I finish Christmas dinner with a big bang?
I'd suggest our Taste the Difference Cheesemonger selection, made up of 5 artisan cheeses. Or there's always the extravagant Christmas Carol Mel and Brownie Cheesecake. Sound good, BFG?
Music to my ginormous ears. Looking for a dreamy dessert to follow Christmas dinner? Ask Sainsbury's. Sainsbury's, good food for all of us.
Subject to availability in selected stores and online. Excludes locals. Cheesecake from 20th of December while stocks last.
The new Apple Watch Series 10 is here. It has our biggest display ever. It's also the thinnest Apple Watch ever, making it even more comfortable on your wrist. And it's the fastest charging Apple Watch, getting you 8 hours of charge in just 15 minutes. Introducing the new Apple Watch Series 10. Now available for the first time in glossy jet black aluminium. Compared with previous equivalent models, requires iPhone XS or later. Charge time and actual results will vary.
Hey Sainsbury's, how can I finish Christmas dinner with a big bang?
I'd suggest our Taste the Difference Cheesemonger selection, made up of 5 artisan cheeses. Or there's always the extravagant Christmas Carol Mel and Brownie Cheesecake. Sound good, BFG?
Music to my ginormous ears. Looking for a dreamy dessert to follow Christmas dinner? Ask Sainsbury's. Sainsbury's, good food for all of us.
Subject to availability in selected stores and online. Excludes locals. Cheesecake from 20th of December while stocks last.
And I said, well, what do you want? My third arrest was for double murder. When I was 21, I was on a crime squad, kicking doors in, people are running away, the cops are running towards it. The custody sergeant's job is to protect the rights of the prisoner. Because we let him take it and we'd lost him, that's a gun on the streets. He got 14 years, I want him to get life. He'd been there and gone round and door open, he'd been blasted. That was sort of, you know, whatever happens now, we're taking them out. So you deliberately ran the car? I said, yeah, I did. If you think I'm going to stick around, we're not even stopping to give first aid because we're still under attack. When I'm speaking as a cabinet office. Afghanistan, Iraq, Gaza, Somalia, Yemen, you name it. At some point, you're going to think something's safe to do. I'm going to say it's not. Know now that you'll be wrong and I'll be right. I've always wanted to be the head of the Prime Minister's protection team. He'd turn up and presidents and kings would invite him in for dinner.
With me today then, I've got a very special guest. He's ex-policeman, and his name's Tim Bainbridge. How are you, mate? You alright?
Good, thank you, Phil. Nice to have me.
Yeah, been looking forward to this one, mate, because we haven't seen each other. When did I last see you?
Oh, you're going to ask me that. It was 2009 we first met when we were both out in Israel.
Yeah.
Probably 2015 maybe, 2016 last time we saw each other.
You were still jobbed then, were you?
Oh, well, yeah, no.
How long have you been out?
I retired in February 2017. So Valentine's Day was my first day as a civic, which you reminded me. You sent me a snooty little message on Facebook. So yeah, February 2017 was when I left.
Wow.
And that's when I headed out to the Middle East. But we've talked about that.
Right, let's go right back.
Yeah.
And let's go when you had a similar amount of hair to what you've got now. Let's talk about baby Tim. Where are you from?
So born and bred in Gloucestershire, small village, very small village. There used to be a pub and a church and the post office, but the post office closed. It's a very small village in Gloucestershire.
Happy family?
Yeah, very much so. I came from a big family. My mum had 14 brothers and sisters.
Wow.
So yeah, it was a big family. She was one of the youngest.
Yeah.
Most of the cousins were involved in the police side of things one way or the other.
I was going to say, you can't have a family that big
Oh,
and
no.
everybody be batting on the
Yeah,
same side. Do you know
there
what
was
I mean?
some interesting times at funerals where the cop side of the family came across the crim side of the family. Yeah, it was a big family. But no, great time. Really nice area, the West Country. Like you, really. I'm from Hampshire originally, of course. So it was really nice. Very lucky growing up there.
School?
Yeah, school. Marling, a grammar school. I loved it.
Oh, you were clever then.
Well,
you were all right.
Clever or lucky, one of the two. I mean, I loved
Don't
it.
be modest.
I played rugby, so that was great for me.
Right, okay.
So my dad had gone to school as well. He was in the first 15 there, so I had a lot.
Oh, there's a family tradition in that
very
school.
much so. Yeah,
Oh,
it was
nice.
a good school. It was very
Did
solid.
that give you something to live up to? What did your old man do?
My dad was a butcher. He was RAF originally. He was RAF, and then he came out and went to the family business, butchering. He was there until the mid 2000s.
Well, I mean, in those days, you know, if you was the butcher in a place like that, everybody knew you, didn't they? Everyone wanted to be your friend as well, didn't they?
Well, I couldn't believe it. So, jump forward to 2008. I'm in Hong Kong. I'm doing work in Hong Kong. I'm sitting there having a beer with my boss, the head of the command, and British couple sit alongside us. And start chatting, and the guy told me from South Gloucestershire, whereabouts Stray. So this guy said, I'm from Stray. So really, I'm just outside. He said, oh yeah, my dad used to have a butcher shop in town. He goes, you're not Mike Bainbridge's boy, are you? And I said, yeah, my boss is going, how? And he turns to his wife and said, I tell you can't beat a Bainbridge sausage. I'm literally about as far away as we can get. I told my old man, and he goes, told you, darling. So yeah, you're absolutely right. If you're one of the local traders, then everybody knows.
Yeah. To be fair, right, I prefer my meat from a local butcher than the supermarket stuff, which is pumped full of water. I'm doing your dad an advert now.
I would say no.
Is he still going?
No, so he retired. He's 85 now, okay. so he retired and handed the business over. He never wanted me to go into it. Always said that there was no future because he knew, as you said, the big supermarkets
were going to take
tearing up, and
the Bainbridge sausage stopped with him then.
Definitely, that could go in a different direction. But no, you're absolutely right. And so, and to be quite honest, the hours my dad did, I thought I did long hours in the job and on CP and stuff. But yeah, really, really long hours, and it's hard times.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, so you did your schooling. You did all right, grades and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's okay. O levels, like GCSEs now. Didn't do A levels. That wasn't really my academic side, really.
What started getting you to leaning towards a career in service?
The cadets.
Okay.
I know you have involvement with the cadets.
Yeah.
So no, so I was 14, I guess. I think it was 13, 14. I think I was young. And enjoying physical side of things with the rugby and that sort of stuff. I wanted a little bit more, and a friend of mine said, do you fancy the cadets? Didn't know anything about it. Is it Army Cadets? ACF. And I went along, and he lasted about 2 weeks, and I stayed there until I was 18.
Okay, so what cap batch were you?
Gloucesters. So
really? Glorious Gloucesters. Glorious Gloucesters.
Stride Platoon, 1st Cadet Battalion in Gloucester Regiment. ACF.
Wow, there you go.
So yeah, I loved it. And
that doesn't stay with you, does it?
No, God, exactly. I mean, it was great. And not only
did you get any rank?
Yeah, I was a Cadet Sergeant Major.
Oh wow!
So I ended up as the B Company CSM.
But to me, right, and I look at the Cadet Sergeant Majors now when I meet them. That's a tremendous achievement.
Oh mate, it really is a huge privilege, and also Lord Lieutenant's Cadet, and there was one cadet from the county.
Living the dream.
Well, it was certainly not only did I enjoy it, and did it give me a real perspective on service, to the Crown, if you like. Yeah. But also, as you're aware, there's a lot of community service involved in getting into the community and building reputation in the community and promoting the ACF. Yeah. I mean, I loved it. It's something I always wanted to go back to.
Not only that, you learn quite a bit as well, because presumably you did some sort of first aid when you were in there.
Yeah, very, very basic first aid, but map and compass,
pick up some skills, didn't you? Do you know what I mean? And
all the instructors were really good, and there were a couple of cops in there, and that added to my kind of goal. But it was brilliant.
So you must have been thinking Army. At what point did you go, I'll tell you what, not the Army, I'm going to go for the police?
No, so I applied for Army Air Corps. I did a course with the cadets who did a UKLF leadership course. Yeah. And it was in time in the mid-80s where lots of money, there's no big ops going on, so lots of money would come into the cadets. So we had, every section of a 4-tonner Land Rover, they were flying Pumas at us, flying around his Puma thinking, I like helicopters. Yeah. And so applied for the Army Air Corps. I was, I think it was about 18. And I mean, got quite a fair distance through it, but they came back and said, look, you're young, and I was, I was young. They said, come back in your 21, something like that, 22 maybe, because they have rank brackets, as you know. Coming about 21, and I thought, okay, so what I'm going to do now? other reasons. I went into the police. When I was 21, I was on a crime squad, kicking doors in, absolutely loving it. Thought, this is where I need to be. And then later on, I thought, I will come back and give another go at the army. I was 29. And they told me, sorry son, you're too old.
You're too old. So, right, let's talk about your police career, because you had a good career, didn't you?
Oh, yeah.
Good long career. You've achieved some good stuff and all, haven't you? Some proper stuff. So, let's talk about you when you first joined up.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm taking it, you do your basic training, and then you have to spend a bit of time on the beat.
Yeah.
Like a normal copper.
Yes. I'm hesitant because I know that 6 years, but you can now do a direct entry, an officer sort of entry now, but that's quite it's not a very common way of doing it. But, so most people do what I do. You do basic training. We did 5 months at Hendon.
You enjoyed that? Was it?
It was tough, yeah. And I was young, I was green, you know, in both sense of the word, I guess. I've been to London twice on school trips. I don't really know it, and it. It was a harsh.
Instructors, are they harsh on you? Is there a physical element?
Yeah, physical. It's very physical. Again, I don't know if it is so much now. We would do. It was 5 days a week. Every day we were doing in the gym, either doing self-defense or sweat sessions or in the pool. Every day we're doing something. The instructors were good, actually. They were good trainers, drill sergeants as well. For the drill side of things, they were a bit more, I guess, military. They thought they were. Didn't get great with them.
A bit more screamy shout.
Yeah, a bit screamy, which didn't really help because most people, you know, it's like trying to teach someone to march and 2 left feet. But most of it was good. It was a lot of academic stuff, but Hendon, that's the largest police training college in the world, 225 people every 5 weeks turning up. Wow. It was massive.
How long is your basic training?
5 months.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
So it's quite a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. And about halfway through, you do a 3/4 way through then anyway, you did a day on the streets. Mine was London Marathon, 2017. 1987. And you're out in your uniform on the streets, the real streets, because Hendon has loads of, you know, like a CQB really for policing, so it's got streets and buildings and hot shops and stuff. But you're out in the real world, and you walk down the street and you kind of like look into the shop windows, because obviously this is buttons, you know, brass, the buttons.
You
and
are
the big silly hat.
I'm old Bill.
I know, and it's really rare. It was good, but no, Hendon was good. You make friends that you keep all the way through your service.
I can imagine so,
and then of course, because it's so big, it's not like joining a regiment where you might know where you're going, the people you're going to stay with. Once you get there, that's it. It's 35,000 cops in London, around about that, and off you go. And you're posted to, at the time, a police station.
So was you Met then?
Yeah, I was Met. Sorry, this is Met. Yeah, so I went from Gloucester to the Met. My cousin was in the Met.
Do you think there's a bit of prestige about being the Met?
Yeah.
Do Met coppers go on Met coppers? You know what I mean?
Biggest gang in London, mate. So my decision was kind of, as I said, cousins in the Met and cousins in Gloucestershire and cadet instructors in Gloucestershire.
Yeah.
And I said, well, what do you want? Do you want to serve your community, or do you want to go out and kick some ass and really experience everything? And the answer was, I want some of that.
Or the whole lot.
Then you then go to London, go to the Met, because Met will have whole squads doing something that, in the other counties they might not do, or you have one guy does
one
5
detective,
things.
One detective for the sleepy village of.
Which is, they have a
Tickle on the
budget.
Tum.
Absolutely. But no, the Met had all sorts of swords, and I thought, I want to fill my boots. But you're right. So you go to a police station. They posted me almost to the borders of the Met, back out again to the west, and you finish off your 2 years. So it's done 18, 19 months probation.
Okay.
During that, you do secondments to different departments like traffic, TSG, like the riot police. CID, the crime squad.
So you're basically going all these different departments,
having a look,
getting as much as you can, filling your boots.
Absolutely.
Can you remember the first time can you remember your first collar?
Yeah, I can.
Go on, tell us about it.
It was checkbook fraud, which was not really unusual, because where I was out on the west of it, we had loads of car chases, ram raids, counties coming in. It was really busy that way, lots of burglaring. And my first one was someone just passed a dodgy credit check across a shop.
So there wasn't a big scuffle getting hold of him or nothing. Just
no, it was a bit. I was kind of.
Was that a bit of a letdown? Was it?
It kind of was. I was standing there going,
I want to wind him into the floor.
Then that came a little later, and then once you've you've broken your cherry, you relax a little bit more.
Can you walk around the station once you've got a collar on?
Actually, you sit on a different table in the canteen. So there's a probationer's table. Probationers have not made an arrest yet, and then there's probationers have made an arrest. You're slowly working your way towards the driver's table.
Oh mate, yeah.
So it was and then after that, then I think my third arrest was for double murder.
Really?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about that?
It was not as exciting as it sounds, purely because that one was there'd been a murder in Wales. It's back in the late 88, 89. Quite a famous murder on a hill path. How would you call it? A path across the hills. And they had a suspect, and they circulated the detailed description, photo fit, and around. And we got this guy, and he was a dead batch for his same date of birth, slightly different name. And it was it wasn't him. But he came in, I asked him about his movements, where he'd been, or who in the welfare. Yes, I have. I'm going. Not only does he match the description, not only has he got the right date of birth, his name's not that far off the suspect looking for. He fit the profile. And everything. So he
you must have been like, yeah, I've got him, lads.
I mean,
yeah.
The custody sergeant goes, yeah, get the CID down here, and it wasn't him, but it was still that kind of feeling of this is particularly.
Do you get a bit of a buzz when if on your way to a job? I mean, those are sort of like, that sounds like it was pretty premeditated. But if you're just in a patrol car and the old radio goes, it's like, right, all call signs.
Yep,
head west.
Definitely, especially when I remember very clearly as being out there trying to panda car, and hold up alarm at the bank, just down the road, and you're going to get there way before any armed cars, because especially out in West London. So you're going to go there. Is it a false alarm? Probably will be, but it might not be. And one of my instructors,
you don't know, you still got to run towards it, haven't
absolutely you? One of my instructors at training school, he'd been there and gone round and door open, he'd been blasted, another saw off.
Wow.
So you never know when you go into that, so you get that feeling.
Yeah.
And the sound of the sirens, if you're in that kind of blue lights, and it's kind of it's a classic thing where people are running away, the cops are running towards it, which is why I get a little bit miffed when the cops get, as a blanket organisation, get a kicking. Individuals is one thing, but when an organisation gets a kicking, when literally they're the ones running the opposite direction.
Yeah, I've never got that myself. I've never got that myself. I have been, I've obviously been lifted myself a few times. I've never been lifted when I haven't done something stupid. Do you know what I mean? So I can't complain, can I? Do you know what I mean? It's been my fault. So I get a bit sort of like, hang on a minute. You know what I mean? Because 9 times out of 10, the people that moan about you are the ones that are going to be the first ones on the blower when Pete's fingers have gone Pete tongue for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you beat stuff.
Yeah.
Any more significant arrests made on there? Anything?
Right. Well, I kind of tested my memory now, Phil. There's a lot. So in my probation, I probably got around to the 80, 90 arrests.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, you go to central London and they were getting hundreds because it was like vagrants and stuff like that. But out on the, like I said, the outer boroughs, outer division of where I was, there's a lot more crime, burglaries, like I said, car chases. We had a lot of really, really good car chases.
Mate, that'd be right up my street.
Good car chase. I know that's a bad thing, but
it'd be right on my street. That,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
Mate, we were because we bordered Heathrow, and as you go around the southern perimeter road on Heathrow, there's like a traffic hub, for police cars and stuff. I mean, my mate, I've been driving the response cars for a while then, and we'd always on nights we'd go and have our sandwiches or whatever, 3 o'clock in the morning, sit out there because crime isn't happening in the police station, so we'd sit out.
But that's what the ambulance crews have done for years, isn't it? They go and sit by a junction that they know is likely to have somebody go wearing across later on,
and they can get to where they need to from that point.
A lot quicker. Yeah.
So I mean, we were sitting there and came with a radio, what they call lost or stolen, because the car's missing. I lost it, around parked it, was a stop. Anyway. So lost or stolen, Vauxhall Cavalier 1.6, blah blah blah, from Feltham. That wasn't too far from us. So I turned to my mate and said, "Oh, we'd have a chance of keeping up with that," and boom, it came straight out to the roundabout. Oh, there it was. Sandwiches over there. Off we go in blue lights and pursuit lights, and yeah, tally ho, we're in. And that's a car chase and bad guys in the bin.
So at some stage you must have thought to yourself, right, this is fun, but I want to take it to the next level now.
Yeah.
So when did that happen for you?
I was, again, it was things happen on night duties. I was on a night duty, and didn't really know much about the crime squad at the time, and at that point there were quite a few crime squads, and we asked, can we go in uniform presence on this junction to cover the crime squad to go and do something? So didn't really know the crime squad were. And so we go off and we're sitting there, and I was quite young at this point, so it's a while before I was actually driving. And the old Sweat PC said, we're just going to park up and just keep out of the way, just in case something kicks off. So I'm sitting in the car, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, it's all dark, and then out of the shadows, half a dozen guys come running across the road, jackets and bags, and a couple of sledgehammers. I said, oh, he said, that's right, son, don't worry, son. And the first guy goes up the front door, and as he's getting to the front door, the other guy launches the sledgehammer like a javelin straight through the front window with his that was the distraction technique. He didn't have like flashbangs. Straight through, and then boffed and it goes, and they all go pile again. I go, who the hell are they? He goes, that's the crime squad. I go,
The new Apple Watch Series 10 is here. It has our biggest display ever. It's also the thinnest Apple Watch. More comfortable on your wrist. And it's the fastest charging Apple Watch, getting you 8 hours of charge in just 15 minutes. Introducing the new Apple Watch Series 10. Now available for the first time in glossy jet black aluminium. Compared with previous equivalent models, requires iPhone XS or later. Charge time and actual results will vary.
Hear that, happy business owner? They're whistling because they found a great deal for unlimited calls, texts, and data with 3 Business. Plans start from just £8 a month with a 4.5% price increase each April. Switch to 3 Business for savings that'll give you something to whistle about. Voted the UK's best network for business.
As voted by the Mobile Industry Awards 2024, £8 per SIM for 10 to 20 SIMs, 24-month plan, unlimited UK only, x 20% VAT.
I want to be one of them.
I want to
be one of them, yeah.
As soon as I finished my probation, within 6 months I was on the crowd school.
Okay, so did that entail going away doing some more training, presumably?
There was bits of training, because we were just starting to get into the way the Met, again, this is very early 90s, the way the Met handled intelligence had changed. There had been a lot of issues around corruption and police officers meeting their informants on their own and who actually own intelligence. So there's a big drive on how you run and recruit and run agents. And so there's that kind of stuff as well. But it's still, and it's light years beyond that now. But yeah, there was a lot of that. There was a lot of putting operations together, running observation posts. We weren't doing mobile surveillance, I did that later, but running OPs and target identification plans together, tracking individuals.
Can you tell us any of the jobs that you did while you were with them?
Again, we had a lot of RAM raiding side of things, so which was, because we're a border area, so the Thames Valley, Surrey and the Met, a tri-border area, what would happen is they would be doing the high-end burglaries in Thames Valley, or still come in Thames Valley, go and do the burglaries in Surrey. But they lived on our ground, so we had to coordinate those. We'd do a lot of operations where we would be waiting for them to come back. We'd spot up the addresses. We had people that we knew were doing.
So presumably some of these faces were under surveillance for quite some time, and then they get teed up. So there was no opportune stuff here. Everything was getting teed up.
Everything was intelligence led. So part of our role was to develop that intelligence as well, which is why I'm talking about going out and when I say sources, informants, basically. And everybody who got arrested at that period would be getting in, and they'd have the intelligence interview. And so in the morning, one of the first jobs we'd go down to the cells, and we said need to visit, and because it wasn't about the evidence for what they'd been arrested for, they didn't need a lawyer present, and so we'd go in and we'd have 5 minutes with everybody. If you walked in a door and they told you to do one, you stayed in there for 5 minutes, because what you didn't want was 10 seconds with that guy, 5 minutes with that guy, 10 seconds,
and
10 seconds.
They've all worked out.
Who's the guy that's talking?
He gets a kick in,
So everybody gets 5 minutes, and if they want to keep talking, then we can do it later. But so he's back building that intelligence opportunities, and
do people squeal quite quickly? Do they?
Yeah.
Is it usually for a return of going, I'll tell you what, you go easy with the beak?
I was going to say that one of the I guess one of the jobs when you're identifying. It's different. If someone's in sales, then yeah, absolutely, that's what they want to do. They either want a letter, because we don't do. It's not like states. You don't do
plea deals.
Thank you. No, it's a letter to the judge about all they're going to get. Or taking into consideration something. But if you're targeting someone because you want to get into an organisation, so later on I was running a crack and firearms task force in South London, and that was more like you'd imagine it. We had different gangs and we were trying to take them out and work out how we go. And what you do then is you develop your intelligence, and you realise we'd work out who was the weaker link, who could lead you to somewhere else. And once you've identified who you want, you then have to work out what would their motivation be to come to us, to come over to us.
Yeah, they've got to have something. So any business transaction in the world has got to work for both parties.
So is it money? Is it some kind of grievance they might have that you know about? sometimes with their girlfriend.
Would you
with
use
boss
that as a
or something.
lever? Did you
Motivation.
use sort of like levers? Motivation. Levers, I call them.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, it is. It's psychological pressure, and you put on. But there's, as you said, they've got to see what's in it for them.
Yeah. And
yeah, of course. If you got them nicked, then there's potential there for.
Well, there's one straight away, isn't
yeah,
it?
straight away. But then we talk about these sort of gangs. As soon as someone's one of their team or crew's arrested, they assume they're going to have pressure put on them. So automatically they get slightly sidelined, or they get a bit less trust from the rest of the gang. So they're not really the ones you want. What you want are the ones that aren't under suspicion.
Haven't been lifted.
Yeah, and so they're the ones you have to target and work through.
Are they quite hard to get hold of? I mean, I don't want you to give away too much on here, but are they quite easy to get to?
No, not really. And it takes time, and this is the trouble for it, is that performance equals charges. How quickly get somebody charged, and
there's always a risk, I suppose, of the guy that you're actually going to try and manipulate.
Yeah,
he's going to get lifted anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and so a lot of times do kind of asymmetric. So you look at, we had one particular gang, and I'm going to be careful how I phrase this.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So one particular gang that was caused real problems, and we had a very quick bit of information that one of them was going to relocate a firearm for someone else to pick up. And so these were two pretty big players in this game. And so I literally grabbed one of the other DCs with me, and I just jumped in the car and we got down there. We didn't have a chance for anything else because public place, didn't know any authorities. And sure enough, the guy comes out and deposits this gun in a public area and disappears. This is like 11, 12 o'clock at night. So hides it somewhere. So it wasn't going to be found by a kid, but it was here. So off they go. And I think, right, no chance of getting any other authorities, so I said, let's go and make sure it's there. So I go in, search around, sure enough, there's this shape of a gun, a handgun, in a sock on the ledge of this place. So I decided, let's take it. Let's just take it. So we take it, and we go back in, and sure enough, about 4 or 5 minutes later, the other bad guy turns up, looking for it, looks for it, it's not there. And the DC I'm with, she's going, we should just let him take it. I said, we couldn't, because we let him take it and we'd lost it, and that's a gun on the streets. So there was a bigger picture of securing, because we still hadn't got an armed response vehicle out to us, we didn't have the time for that, it was all very fast time. So I said, I'm going to take it. So anyway, we take it, our guy gets humping, off he goes. Go back, and then it's forensicated, and unsurprisingly there's just all sorts of crap on this thing. But we did pick up a fingerprint, and I said, right, we can go and lift that guy. But then all he could say is, well, I was in a club and somebody's handed me something and I just handed it back.
Yeah. Or, they're very clever like that.
Yeah. Or we do nothing. Let's just hold it and see what happens. And that's all I said, because A, put that gun there, B came to pick it up, 2 minutes later it wasn't there. Now A and B were senior lieutenants, if you like, in this gang.
Yeah.
Not for much longer they were, because we took the gun, and A and B got a little bit upset with each other because they accused each other of stealing the gun.
Yeah.
They didn't. Now there was a lot of paperwork that had to be done about potential of one of them shooting each other, of course, and we are talking a while ago now. But we found out through our sources very quickly that started a mild fracture between those two, and within 6 months, the gang is done.
Really?
Distrust. They didn't trust each other.
Yeah, they thrive on trust.
Oh, of course they do. Everything's about trust. That's why, like I said, if one of them's lifted, then it's kind of like, well,
it's ironic, really, that the shiftier they are, the more trust they need to get away with it.
Yeah, these gangs. I mean, you take it later on when I did CT stuff.
Yeah.
The Nutty Squad in Northern Ireland. I mean, their intelligence work for the IRA was some of the best going out there, because they had no rules. So they knew anybody got arrested got a proper interrogation, because they lost trust. And so if you could get into these criminal gangs, and if you can break that trust, especially with senior people, without physically, and everything we did was above the law, above the law, no issues. It was in line with the law, that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
It was just asymmetric. Then you get that little bit of rot in there, and the trust. They don't trust each other, and they start turning.
It's time done. So you did that for a number of years.
Yeah.
On the special branch.
Yeah.
And that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
What was your next move?
So
did you do firearms on special branch?
Yeah, I did. So I did surveillance. I was 4 years on a surveillance team, which was some of the best and dullest time of my life.
I've been there. Sat in the bush, you know, 14 days for one photograph like that.
But when it comes off and when you get it, if you
beautiful, figure beauty.
Absolutely. If I go back now and think about surveillance, I think it's some fantastic jobs. That was the second time I actually rammed a car off the road, but that's another thing. But you kind of love it. But if I do go back and think, that's half a dozen things in 4 years. There was a lot of time sitting in the car getting bored on my mind. So digital surveillance.
You just said rammed a car off the road. Tell me about ramming the car off the road. I want to know.
What's the statute of limitations? So this was it was my last day, or certainly last week I was on surveillance. I've been promoted. I was going being practice sergeant, going to uniform, and we were following a team of really quite nasty burglars from South London, and they were going out to the counties and turning over.
Welcome to the debrief, and this
Turn
week
left,
I've got a
then
guy with
cross
me,
the
Guy
roundabout
Shepherd.
and take
I've
the
known him for about a
second
year,
exit.
and in that time, he spent much of that year in and out of Ukraine. He's a businessman from Hampshire. Guy, how are you, buddy? You all right?
Yeah, Phil, I'm really good, thanks. How about you?
Brilliant, mate. Brilliant. Listen, you're just back as well, aren't you?
Yeah,
Cross
got
the
back less than
roundabout
24
and
hours
take
ago.
the second
Been to
exit,
Odessa and back
8:34
in
towards
5 days,
Newbury.
6,000 kilometres.
Oh,
So a little bit shattered.
Appreciate you coming in. You look tired. How was your trip?
It was really good. We took over a 26-ton lorry, a former builder's merchant one with a big crane on the back, 3 pretty much brand new quad bikes and some trailers, all the way down to Odessa for a unit down there. I'll tell you a bit about them in a second. But that will be for delivering supplies, casualty evacuation, and that vehicle is pretty much in service now between Kherson and Bakhmut.
Wow. So listen, what I want to do is I'm going to take things right back to your childhood. Find out a little bit about you, all right, and then we'll talk about what you're doing now, because what you're doing now is phenomenal. I know some of it, and I can't wait to tell everybody about what you're up to. So, listen, where does Guy come from? Where was Guy as a kid?
Okay, well, I was born in Scotland, and mainly because my dad worked for BP, and that was what was then Grangemouth Refinery. It's now Ineos. Okay. So travelled the world a little bit. Lived in Canada for a couple of years. Lived in London for a couple of years. Bit of boarding school, and
ended up at school. Were you a clever kid?
I was a difficult kid.
Difficult kid.
Non-compliant, but at school I went into the cadet force, and that gave me immense skills and a lot of value and really good training.
It does. It's a great place, and you know, lots of people serving today will always refer back to what they first learned in the cadet force, which is a really valuable experience.
Absolutely, and you're ambassador for the cadets.
I am an ambassador. Yeah, the champion of the cadet force, which is I'm very proud of that. To be honest, it's putting stuff back, as it were, from me.
Absolutely.
So, grades and that? Did you get good grades? Did you achieve at school?
I probably exceeded my parents' expectations, but for me it was more about mechanical stuff. About I love things like Meccano, taking things apart, breaking them, getting them to work. So the GCSE English and English literature and Latin and stuff like that. It just
see you later.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nothing to do with me. Yeah.
Absolutely, but give me some tools or some engineering to do, and then I'm that really gets my interest.
Okay, so you came out of school. What did you do then? What was your move on life? Where did you go? What did you want to do?
I very nearly joined the Royal Engineers, and in fact went to a pre-RCB in Chatham, and that was a really fun experience. I probably went there a year earlier than I should have done. I hadn't quite grown up enough, and with 3 of the other guys there, we went out in the town and spent a couple hours in the brig at the guardhouse on a pre-RCB.
Yeah, well done. Nice one.
But all of the tasks and stuff really excelled at. The shark-infested custard and all that sort of thing that you had to cross. Absolutely great fun. But I ended up going into civil engineering and construction as a career, which was made my mother a lot happier, because this was the days in 1990 of the IRA, and she was convinced I'd get blown up in Ireland.
Yeah, a lot of people's thoughts were, the bad things over there. So what sort of, when you're talking engineering, what do you actually do? What do you build, make?
I'm really lucky. Every project I've done has been different. So, for example, one in Portsmouth under Gunwharf Quay, building a tunnel under a railway line in one weekend, and that's under a 5-track railway line. With other guys, I was part of a project team that built the tallest residential building in Southampton on the south coast. That's a 30-storey building.
Okay, so do you design these things, or do you just help in the construction?
It's mainly the construction phase, so the design team will be there. Quite often we have to point them, we have to manage that process and make sure they stick to the brief. Architects like putting extra lines on a piece of paper and make something a bit more expensive and shiny and glittery than they need. So we've got to
you put the reality into their drawings. You're like, no, mate, I don't go together like that. It ain't never going to work.
Absolutely, and they like spending other people's money with someone else's.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
So you've been doing that for a number of years. Number of different projects all around the country?
Very much, yeah. Like most of the southern home counties, so stuff in Heathrow, Chatham, big shopping centre in Chatham. Actually, we shut the Medway Tunnel on that one when we dug up some ordnance, and we had BBC helicopter flying over to on disposal on site, and it turned out to be from about 1664. It was an old bomb.
1664?
Yeah, it was from when the Dutch invaded the Medway. It
Wow.
was one of the very first phosphorus bombs that was ever made. I think it was the Mad Prince von Ludwig dug this thing up. And it caused chaos for about probably about 5 or 6 hours.
Where's the manual for that one?
Well, it's certainly not in the British Army Bomb Disposal Guide. I think it predates that one.
Stumped. So look, listen, the Ukraine stuff is what are really predominant. Although I could talk about your other stuff for days, I'm sure, but predominantly I brought you in to talk about the Ukraine stuff. How did you get involved in Ukraine? What triggered you to disappearing over and doing what you're doing now? We'll get to where you are now, but what early days of Ukraine? Why?
For sure. I think there's 2 reasons. The first is, as you know, I collect British military history from largely World War II to current day. So I've got.
And it's not a couple of smocks and a jumper somewhere, is it? It's just your collection, top to bottom, in a 20-second brief. What you got?
1966 Pink Panther, 1990 SAS Desert Patrol Vehicle Gulf War One. I've got 2 Wimics. One of them is a green Wimic that's currently in Ukraine on the front line. Free loan to them for as long as they need it. Having given them that one for as long as they need it, and it may not come back, I went out and bought another one because I wanted to keep the 3 military Land Rovers. So I've got a Pathfinder Wimic.
Oh wow!
So that's at home. There's a 1974 Sabre CVRT. Can't call it a tank because it's not a tank. So that's a great bit of kit.
Even I'm going to be guilty of calling it a tank, mate. Anything that's big and solid is a tank to me.
Yeah, you call it a tank, and anyone in Royal Tank Regiment will go absolutely potty.
I'm going to apologise to you right now if you're out there from the Royal Tank Regiment. It's a tank, all right?
Yeah, it's a baby tank. So no, that's immense fun to drive. That's got the J60 petrol engine in it. So I've got my H license, so I tear around the village and that, and go to the pub, Morrison's, to pick up some milk. What else have we got? So there's 1953 Willys Jeep, which is because it's not World War II, and a lot of the later ones are done up to World War II, so they're on markings. We've done that as a MASH Jeep, if you remember the TV series. So 4077, so that looks stunning. 1939 Egypt Army staff car, which is Denial's bomb disposal.
Wow.
There's a Honda RS 250 Parachute Regiment bike. That's a P-Reg. There's a German Nazi bike with a sidecar, and a load of quads in the back garden. So we've got
there's a fair old collection, isn't there? And inside your house, again, is testament to your love of things military, because it's like a small arsenal in there, isn't it?
Very much, yeah. I think there are about 40 DIACs and riffs and all sorts of other stuff, and probably about 3,000 items of World War II
I'm just
history.
waiting for the bloke who tries to break into your place one day. He's going to run an absolute crooked mile, isn't he?
I think so. They're looking through the window, see rocket launchers leaning up against the side of the walls, and then be off. So that was one of the main points that led to the interest in Ukraine, because I go to the military shows as you do, and last year Odyssey, Military Odyssey, one of the 2 best shows with the guys over at Cable, and there were a couple of Ukrainian guys there supported by Damon, who's one of the other traders. Good lad was there, and they had some bits for sale, and they were fundraising for Ukraine, so some bits of Russian uniform. But of particular interest to me, they had a drone, one of the very first drones that was being used in Ukraine, and I'll show you in a second, but whenever you like. And they were after a donation, so I thought actually that's quite interesting. It's current history. It's outside of my field of area, but as the UK, we were doing a huge amount to support Ukraine. I'm so proud of what our government, what Boris did at the time to stand by Ukraine. We were giving them NLAW 2 weeks before the invasion started, the full-scale invasion. So So the support we'd given that country is immense, and I'm really proud about that. And wanted to help, so I got my checkbook out and gave them a big donation, far more than what it was probably worth, and kept in touch with them. And over the course of the next 6 months, was any surplus profit from the business was just donating it to buy kit they needed. So they're very much supporting a couple of the military units.
When you say kit they need, is this medical kit? What sort of kit you've been helping out to get?
Anything and
was
everything.
it in the beginning it started off with medical kit?
Absolutely everything. At the start of this, Ukraine's armed forces were about 100,000. They're now 1 million. So they've had to have tenfold equipment.
Yeah, that's more than what they had on the stalls, and that's for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. So whatever they've been able to get from anywhere. So boots, DPM, MTP, rucksacks, night vision, rifle scopes, medical trauma for first aid, vehicles. You know, I've bought and sent on one-way trips probably 3 or 4 vehicles now, and these things are invaluable because they've had to literally grow tenfold in terms of their resource, and with that they need everything, computer. And I'll tell you a bit more about one of the units in particular in a second. Tsunami, who come up a few times. We've very much aligned ourselves with. So this is really donations to help them get going and buy kit, and then there was a conversation about maybe I'll take the next vehicle over, which is what happened. And then I've got drawn into it. I've really got drawn into it.
Tell us about that first trip then, because there must have been something on that first trip when I tell you what, guy, you ain't stopping here. You're going to keep going with this stuff.
Well, it was. I tell you what, it was an experience. It was, if anything, it was Mr. Bean goes to the war zone for the first time. There were a couple of complete clusterfucks on it. So very harsh learning curve.
Let's hear it, because I want warts and all.
Okay, all right. So this goes back to February this year, and the timing for that was very much around the 1-year anniversary of, I can't say the invasion of Ukraine, because that happened in 2014.
That was with the Crimea stuff, wasn't it? Yeah.
So don't say to Ukrainian, it's the 1-year anniversary. The 1-year anniversary is 2015. So this is the 1-year anniversary of the full-scale invasion. So 24th of February 2023. And between a group of 7 or 8 British MPs and a lot of other volunteers, we decided the best place to be for the 1-year anniversary of the full-scale invasion was in Kyiv, to show some support. Now, Russia are really big on marking anniversaries, so there's a real expectation that the place was going to get bombarded and hammered. But Biden had been in. We passed his vehicle going the other way on one of the motorways. At the time, Boris had been in. World leaders, Poland and Ukraine were groaning under the weight of world leaders at the time we were there, which was incredible, the international support. And I think because of that, Putin decided he didn't have the bollocks to do anything and tried to assassinate a head of state from somewhere. So the trip we were taking across was generators, all sorts of non-lethal military equipment. There was medical supplies, but more importantly, there were about 600 uniforms, complete uniforms, boots, trousers, jackets for part of the Tsunami organisation. So I've got a Range Rover, as you know, and I've got a big Eiffel Williams flatbed trailer, and the way that our Ukrainian friends that we support take stuff over is they put them in Euro pallets. So these are boxes 1 metre by 1 metre by 1.2 high. So I'm thinking, okay,
that's so European, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It is, yeah.
It's proper European, isn't it?
So on my Eiffel, I'm thinking, well, I know I can get 4 long and 2 wide, so that's 8 boxes. But what the hell? Why don't we go 2 high? Yeah. So I ended up with double stacked Euro pallets on the back of the Eiffel Williams trailer. Probably about 8 tons worth of stuff in that trailer. So I had to change the brake pads in the Range Rover when we got back. And so the whole thing was full packed with military equipment for these guys. And for the journey down, wanted to protect it so it was safe against the rain. So black shrink wrap or something like that, pallet wrap.
Yeah.
I thought, okay, I'm sure I can get this in blue and I'm sure I can get this in yellow. So we wrapped the top half of the pallets in blue for the top half of the flag, and the bottom half in yellow, and we ended up with this huge box that's probably much the size of a shipping container following the Range Rover down the road. So 3,000 miles
in yellow and blue.
In yellow and blue. Yellow and blue. I tell you what, at petrol stations, people came up and they donated some cash. They were giving money. The support we were getting, people picking the horn on the way. We had one person in Germany who didn't give such a generous gesture, so there was a little bit of anti-support there, but so we drove all the way across, and I've got to say, towing 8 ton worth of trailer behind a 3.5 ton Range Rover you're going past the lorries and you get the wash of the lorries. It was the most intense fraught drive I've ever had. Yeah. So by the time you've gone all the way through Europe, nervous about the police and weighbridges, but then you get into the Ukrainian border. And so we went to Lviv, then to Kyiv, and then down to Odessa, where at that point I had an empty trailer. But some of the dramas on the way. Did you know, to take a trailer into Ukraine, that trailer has to have its own unique number plate?
What, so the sides of the vehicle?
Yes.
So you've got to have it, oh right, okay.
I didn't. Without that, you can't get in. So we had to do... and just creating some paperwork for us, but it was a palaver. You can actually get from DVLA a unique number plate for your own trailer. It's 26 quid. So that process does exist in the UK, but I'd never heard of it.
Well, you're educating me, I'm going to tell you.
And one of the learning curves, one of the very steep learning curves. I think the other one was the Polish at the border crossings, and I don't understand this. Poland are terrified about what's going on in Ukraine. They see it as a big risk for them, and when the full-scale invasion occurred, they were ready to go into Ukraine and create a buffer zone between their border and the Russians if it went completely wrong. They are terrified about the prospects of stability in Ukraine. For whatever reason, getting across the border through Poland into Ukraine is just hard work. It's the paperwork, the bureaucracy, that there's no compassion or love from them. It's everyone who I've spoken to, and I know a huge number of people now who go back and forth, the one thing they find draining is the border crossing. I mean, going back out.
Yeah, I mean, I've done it myself. So yeah, I get that. It is hard work, isn't it?
Yeah, but once you're in there and you meet these wonderful people who are fighting for their country, the determination, the defiance.
I think you start smiling as soon as you say that. There's obviously a fondness that you've built up with these people.
Absolutely, but it's so mutual. You'll have seen the papers and the press, the amount of money that each country is given, and America's given that much money, and I think we're second on the list with something down here.
Yeah.
And then I think at one point we've given more than Europe had. But the affinity that the Ukrainians have for the British people, the United Kingdom people, is number one on their list. Yeah, America have given vast amounts of money, but if you talk to anyone in Ukraine about what's going on, they are so grateful and supportive of the British for the stuff that's been done there. In Ukraine, the second most common number plate is a British vehicle. If you want to find a second-hand double crew cab pickup in this country, you've had it. In fact, they're all out there.
You're right. Yeah.
So the amount of support that's going on, and I'd say some of the people I've met are doing incredible things out there to help these guys.
So your first trip, you learned a few lessons off of that, and so you came home and you must have thought, right, what can I do now? Was that the case? And you just
pretty much, yeah. Went out and bought a van. So we've got a huge van. The Range Rover. Oh my God, the fuel economy. Taking that thing there and back. I think it's about £2,000 worth of fuel to get that car there and back.
I can imagine, yeah.
Comfortable journey.
Cost you 20 quid to get to the shops, isn't it?
Yeah.
Get yourself down to Odessa, isn't it?
Absolutely. So made the mistake of taking it for a second time with another trailer on the back. And by this time, we'd bought a big Citroen Relay, height to length for.
Yeah.
It's the TARDIS. You can get an incredible amount of stuff in it.
Yeah.
So on the second trip over, we had to fill the Range Rover up 4 times for every 1 time in the van. So the Range Rover's not going back again. That's grounded.
Range Rover's days are done.
That's grounded. Yeah, it's spent a lot of time in Ukraine, but it's not going there again. So but every time we could find enough stuff to take across. As a business, I fund the total cost of the fuel and everything else to get there. But we've got a great network of people in the Hampshire area and beyond who will collect military stuff, medical stuff, and anything. As long as it's good quality, it's in date, particularly if it's battlefield trauma. So dressings, medicines, syringes. I've taken over all sorts of other stuff, prescription drugs, morphine, taken over some stuff I probably shouldn't have, but it's going in the right direction,
all in the
right reason, and I sleep very happy with that.
So the tsunami people, let's get a bit more about them, because that's sort of like become your little niche over there, isn't it? Really, that's your area of concentration, shall we say?
It is definitely. You start off in peace with an army of 100,000, and you need to end up with a million. You know what a command structure looks like. You can't just put 900,000 people into a structure that's geared up for 100,000 and expect it to function. You need a bigger command structure. You need infrastructure. You need IT. You need bases. You need space. You need everything. So under something called the Zelensky Initiative, they looked around the country and looked at what other organisations do we have that we can turn into military units. So across the country there are border force units, there are police units, and for the group that I'm supporting, which are based in Odessa, which is a beautiful city, they are effectively what used to be Ukraine border force and police force in Odessa. So because of the war and the massive reduction in freight and shipping, border force are doing not a lot out there, because of the nationalistic sense of community. The mafia has been a big problem in Ukraine. They're no longer a problem. A lot of the emails you used to get saying, got some money from an American general, someone give us this money and you'll get however many million. A lot of that used to come from Ukraine. But all of the mafia effort now is targeted against Russia. So there isn't really a problem with crime in Odessa. It's a safer place to be in London, frankly.
I can imagine, yeah.
Absolutely safer.
Everybody's looking out, aren't they? Everyone's got this fixation on rightly so the Russians.
Very much. So there's an organisation called Tsunami, which is Tsunami Regiment, and the guys in Odessa are Fury Brigade, and there effectively was a 300-strong static police-backed force. They don't carry firearms, so a lot have military experience as part of their training, because that's what you do in Ukraine. But they've had to turn from a 300-strong static force to a 3,000-strong mobile force.
Wow. So
that's command structure, that's training of people, that's vehicles, it's mobile catering, it's mobile food, it's mobile accommodation, everything. So we've kind of latched onto these guys, and because it's a bit tricky, there's an organisation called IDCC, International Defence Coordination Centre, so that's where all of the military units in Ukraine can request Western kit. Because they're a police unit and they're part of the Ministry of Internal Affairs, they fall outside of that process. So they don't get access to the big, interesting, sexy stuff that Western countries are donating and are being channeled through IDCC Germany. So they need absolutely everything. In fact, I think at one point, probably two of their favourite vehicles that they're using down there were ones I'd taken over, the Winnock being one of them.
So you're having a huge impact?
A very small part of the jigsaw puzzle of all of the people in the UK that are having a huge impact throughout Ukraine.
These two tsunami troops, to put it in perspective, they are on a proper front line, aren't they? They are scrapping hard, aren't they?
Oh, for sure. They are clearing trenches, they are working with mortar artillery, they're
So it's not like a home guard. It's not like, I think sometimes people get the impression, it's a bit of a home guard thing going on there and we've turned the policemen into soldiers. It's not, is it? They are on a proper front line.
They are
actually, cold steel ramming it into people's chests.
They are, They're defending their country, and they are utterly fucked off. They are determined, and they are going to get their land back, and they're right up there with all of the other units. And as you say, they're fighting in the trenches. Some of the videos I get through from these guys every now and again are heartbreaking.
Well, I've seen some.
Absolutely heartbreaking.
Incredible. And the other thing is, of course, and I noticed this when I went over there. Poland was filling up with women and children. And so you go into these towns, and there's no women and children there, is there? That's a really strange feeling, isn't it? It's incredible, isn't it?
It is. Actually, there are maybe three halves of Ukraine. 70% of the country has never been occupied by Russia recently. It's life as normal there. Shops are open.
Yeah.
Buses going.
In Afghanistan, you could go to a place in Afghanistan where nothing had changed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you could go up to other places in Afghanistan where it was absolute full-on, stuff was falling out of the sky all day and all that sort of stuff. So That is the nature of a country at war, isn't it?
It is.
There's places you can go which are completely going on it.
Very much. And then you go to the 15% which has been liberated. So, for example, there's Irpin and Bushehr up in the north by Kyiv, and the devastation there is awful. The press have well documented that with civilian deaths and unmarked graves and so on. But then you go down to somewhere like Kherson, where it's also up against the front line, and there's mortar and there's artillery landing all the way around you every 20 seconds. Here's something going off. Kherson had a population of 500,000. When I was there last, it had a population of 50,000. Probably
That's a lot of people.
three quarters of that 50,000 were military. The population's just gone.
Yeah. And a lot of that would have been dead as well, wouldn't it? A lot of people have been killed. The loss of lives has been absolutely I don't get your head around it here.
And I think, God willing, they get down to the south coast. Once they get to somewhere like Mariupol, satellite imagery has a lot of evidence about some very, very big mass graves. There are currently 1 million unaccounted for Ukrainians.
That's a lot of people. I mean, that's a lot of people. If you think Old Trafford holds 70,000 people, say, for instance, or Wembley holds 90,000 people, that's 10 times what's in Wembley on a cup final day.
Yeah. And
that's incredible. Get your head around that. That's ridiculous, isn't it?
And that's not people who've gone across the where they are, because they know they're in Poland, so that's people. The people that are left into the EU or neighbouring countries, they're not that 1 million because they know that they're safe. That's 1 million people on the southern area of Ukraine and the eastern end who have gone into Russian territory, taken to Russian territory, and no one knows where they are.
So a lot of people are talking about this war and they're saying, it's gone back to World War II, trenches and all that stuff. But there's a different aspect of it now, isn't there? There's an airborne element which is sort of like completely bedding itself in on this war, as it were, wasn't it? We've seen it elsewhere, but this war really has taken the drone stuff to a next level, hasn't it? Can you tell me a little bit about the drone warfare, what you've seen over there?
Absolutely. And as you say, the World War II element, this is World War II fighting on the ground, because no one's got air superiority for fixed-wing aircraft or rotary-wing aircraft. It's World War II fighting with Cold War vehicles. Cold War vehicles, we're dusting off 1970s CVRTs and sending it back.
T-62s,
absolutely, yeah,
all that sort of stuff.
Russia's stuff is going backwards in age, and our stuff that we're sending across is going, thankfully for the Ukrainians, forwards in age. But yeah, World War II tactics with Cold War vehicles, but there are 4 game changers. First one is Starlink. Musk is a fruitcake. He's an absolute nutty person with Twitter. I don't know, but I can't say anything bad about the guy, because the provision of Starlink for Ukraine, which has given them immense secure communication amongst each other's, absolute game changer, particularly for the sort of volume of data for drones and for video imagery. So that's the first one. The second one is drones. In the press, I've never heard the phrase drone